Hello, in this recording we're going to look at the poem Coming Home by Owen Sheers. This is part of the selection from Songs of Ourselves that is currently on the examination for Cambridge International Examinations English Literature. Let's start with a little bit about the poet himself. Owen Sheers. He was born in Fiji but grew up in Wales. And it's the history and identity of Wales that's formed a large part of his development as a poet. And in particular, the people of Wales, their lives, their families, and especially the difficulties that they face in trying to live their lives, particularly in interaction with the landscape surrounding them. This is a deceptively simple poem. Let's take an overview. In the poem, an adult son returns to his familial home and makes observations of his mother, father, and grandfather. Now, these observations are tinged with sadness as the poem deals with the themes of separation between parents and children as they grow older, moving from childhood to adulthood, and more generally the passage of time, aging and mortality. The theme of the poem is supported by its structure. The poem is written in free verse, which means it's unrhymed and has an irregular meter. And this is probably best to present the poem as a series of flowing personal impressions of the speaker as he visits the family home. The poem is written in 3 stanzas. The first 2 stanzas have 7 lines each, the last have 4. And this perhaps represents a winding down to a conclusion, a rather melancholy one. Each stanza concerns a different family member, starting with mother, moving on to the speaker's father, and then ending with his grandfather. Let's have a look at the first 3 lines of the first stanza. My mother's hug is awkward, as if the space between her open arms is reserved for a child, not this body of a man. Now, slightly strange, disconcerting start to the poem, perhaps. Let's think about this awkward hug. The emotional warmth and familiarity of the noun hug sits uneasily with the adjective awkward, leading us to wonder what is particularly is discomforting about this mother's embrace. Well, here we've got conflicting imagery. The mother's arms are open, which suggests they are accepting, but the space between them, the noun space, giving this idea of something that's missing. The space between them is reserved for a child. So what's missing is the child rather than her adult son. Perhaps this sense of discomfort comes from the fact that the speaker, as an adult, feels that he no longer fits into this space that he's left in the family home. And by referring to himself as this body of a man, why not this man, this body of a man? The speaker is suggesting, though he's physically an adult, perhaps on returning home he feels some kind of lack of maturity, or perhaps more specifically, his returning to the family home is infantilizing him in some way. Let's look at the second part of the stanza. In the kitchen she kneads the dough, flipping it and patting it before laying in again. The flour makes her over, dusting the hairs on her cheek, smoothing out wrinkles. Well, firstly, the speaker's mother is comfortably in the domestic sphere. She appears in the poem in the kitchen, where she is preparing bread, we imagine. Let's look at the verbs needs, flipping, patting, and then laying in. This act of preparing the dough to make bread. Now, the effect of this familiar act of making bread is emphasized by the repetitive cyclical action suggested by these verbs. And that's both literal, you need to repeat these actions over again to prepare the dough, but also metaphorical. This is an act that the speaker has seen his mother repeat many times over during his lifetime. And this takes him back in terms of his memory. The flower makes her over, it gives her a makeover. The mother's countenance or appearance is cosmetically improved by the flowers, covering her skin, making it lighter, filling in the wrinkles, and this allows the speaker to imagine that the passage of time is reversed. He's visualizing his mother as the younger woman that she was when he was a child. Now the second stanza deals with the speaker's father, who he refers to as Dad. Dad still goes and soaks himself in the rain. Up to his elbows in hedge he works on a hole that reappears every winter, its edges laced with wet wool. Now the use of the term Dad suggests a closer bond than if he referred to this figure as his father, perhaps. And the time adverbial, the action he's undertaking, soaking himself in the rain, the time adverbial he still goes and soaks himself in the rain, is suggesting this is an activity repeated over a longer period of time. It also suggests maybe that this effort has become unnecessary or something inadvisable for his father to continue doing. Perhaps he's worried about his father working in this inclement weather, the rain. We get a lot of it in Wales. And the phrase also up to his elbows suggests a degree of hardship and hard work. What's he working on? He's working on this hole that reappears every winter. Maybe that takes us back to the idea of something missing from the mother's embrace. Here we're dealing with a hole in the hedge that the father is having to repair every single winter. And more generally, perhaps, we might think this is representative of the human struggle to manipulate nature, all of humankind's works, and even humans themselves eventually deteriorate in time despite all their efforts. To the contrary, the edges of this hole laced with wet wool, we imagine has come from a local sheep. This hole seems to be decorated with the wool of the sheep, and this provides a tangible link to the idea that there's local livestock. These are people who are very much connected to the land and the animals that live around them. Frozen breath snagged on the blackthorn. When he comes in again, his hair's wild, and his pockets are filled with filings of hay. The end of the stanza then, dealing with the father, we start off with this lovely visual image of the wool left by the sheep, a metaphor, these frozen breaths snagged on the blackthorn, the sheep's wool caught in the hedge, but also metaphorically perhaps representing the snatched breaths of the father due to his physical exertions. Blackthorn as a noun itself has got connotations of darkness and discomfort, and would be nasty stuff, as you can see from the picture, to actually catch yourself on. Now, this image of the wild-haired father, you might notice that there is a lack of an apostrophe. His hair's wild, his hair's wild. That's not a typo, that's how it appears in the poem itself. We get this impression that the speaker's father is rooted in his rural surroundings, and his wild appearance is emphasized by a graphological device, by this conscious decision to miss out the apostrophe. Something is not going according to the rules of punctuation here, giving a little bit of an extra sense of that wildness. Now his pockets are filled with filings of hay. This suggests to me there seems to be little to be gained, at least from the speaker's point of view, for all his father's efforts. The use of alliteration filled with filings bring our attention to the fact that these are worthless bits of hay rather than money that fill the father's pockets after all of his efforts. In the final stanza, the speaker in the poem moves on to his grandfather. All seated, my grandfather pours the wine. His unsteady hand makes the neck of the bottle shiver on the lip of each glass. It is a tune he plays faster each year. So let's start with all. That pronoun suggests to us a sense of family unity. They're all sat down, we imagine, to dinner together. But here there's also the hint that everyone is equally susceptible to the passage of time. And this is perhaps juxtaposed with the celebratory act of sharing a bottle of wine. The focus on the grandfather brings our attention to the process of aging. The fact that the grandfather has an unsteady hand, the adjective unsteady conveys a sense of infirmity. We've got this wonderful image here of the neck of the bottle shivering on the lip of each glass. And the verb shiver here, shiver, almost seems onomatopoeic for the sound of the glass neck of the bottle on the glass rim. And this connotes an uncomfortable sensation. And the fact that this shivering sound is a tune he plays faster each year is a sort of sardonic metaphor, really, suggesting it's unavoidable that the grandfather's condition should continue to deteriorate, to get worse as he becomes older. He becomes less able to complete simple acts such as pouring a glass of wine. And more generally then, this becomes a reminder of our own mortality. Hopefully we can recognize this is an elegant, deceptively simple poem that deals with quite complex themes of family relationships, the interaction of people with their environment, and it also deals in a really melancholic manner with the inevitable process of aging. Well, I hope you found that useful. Please share your own ideas about the poem in the comments section. And if you'd like to subscribe to my channel, I will be posting videos dealing with the other poems in the selection shortly. Thanks for now.